Hi YouTube, Tim here. I was asked to make a bow in the style of Merida from the movie Brave. So this will be my bow of bravery. I like that. It's an extremely non-copyright infringing name, yeah? So, here we have the core of the bow. Just a 48-inch long youth recurve style bow that I flattened out and reflexed at the center. Now I have my pot here, my 8-inch pot. The one I do most of my recurve tips on, and I'm also going to deflex it mid-limb before I reflex the tips. I'm also going to either take a V-splice out of the tips to thin them down, or I'm going to flatten them. More likely I'll just flatten them side to side. That's been my technique for the most part. I'm going to start with the mid-limbs. Like I said, I'll just measure it out, and then I'll do one, and then I'll show as I do the second one. So by the time I check back, you'll already have one to look at before I continue making that on. Because right now I haven't even measured out exactly where I'm going to do it. But plan between 4 and 8 inches, or 6 and 9 maybe inches out from the end of the handle. And like usual, I typically mark 2 inches and 3 inches out from either side of true center on the handle. And then what I do is, I start the taper. You can just see a little bump right here. I go about halfway in when I put down the board. That way, here it should be at normal limb thickness, and here it should be at full handle thickness, and it just, once you heat the handle, it puffs up and smooths out. That's my technique. Okay, so let me go ahead, make my markings. I will go flatten, deflex one limb, and then I will show you the process as I do the other. Here we go. This is what we're left with. From the handle section, I measured out between, remember, 3 inches from the handle is the end of the handle. From that point, I measured a further 3 inches. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches. So 3 to 8 inches from the edge of the handle. I then heated through that area and then placed it on top of the pot. Bent it to the right angle, basically to the point where the tip comes flush with the handle if you set it down like that. It's going to be a little different once the other one is bent too. You're not going to be able to measure it the same way, but you'll have it to compare against. So I like to hold the pot there, and I'll flatten it while looking at it from the side. And when you're looking at it from the side, you have a nice profile view and you can get the two limbs lined up beautifully. Let me go ahead and do that now. Now typically, for the mid-limbs, since it's so hard to rotate, I don't use this channel. I just hold it up in the air and I'll heat it like that. Since most of the bend is going to be in the center, I also like to start in the center, and then I slowly expand what I'm heating. Each time I go around, I'll get a little bit bigger until I heat the whole area. Already starting to soften in the center. Don't worry if it puffs, that's pretty much what we want. The bow is not going to be highly stressed just due to the design. You don't need to worry if it's not perfect. But we'll get it as close to perfect as we can. Okay, I'm really happy with that. So now, let's make sure you can see all of this. Yep, great. Just going to take that, using one of the heat pads. I can help press it down at first to try and minimize the puffing and control it. It'll still retain enough heat so you'll be able to shape it as you're after you're done making the primary bend. Okay, so looking at it from the side, I can see I need to make this bend a little bit sharper. Oh, there we go. And now, well, it's actually pretty darn straight already. That's surprising. Usually you tend to introduce a little bit of a kink when you make the limbs, so the fact that it's more or less straight is serendipitous, very pleasing. It saves you a little bit of work down the road. So I think I just took some of the bend out that last round, and after every time you adjust it, just go back and straighten it. Okay, so from here to the end of the handle it's straight, and then from the rest of the handle all to the end it looks pretty straight. Maybe a tiny kink at the bend over here, yeah. So I'm going to reheat this limb right here at the tip, and I'm just going to take out that bend. But other than that, it looks pretty darn good. So okay. All I did was I braced it against my knee, hold it between both sides that are hot, and then just bend, bend, bend in the direction you want to correct. And you don't want it too hot to do that. Okay, so like I say, it's pretty good on both sides. Maybe, in fact, I only need to correct it at the center. That's even the best spot, because then you can just heat right there and twist to straighten, bend. Let me go and do that right now. For a bow that I want to enhance the stability of, one of the best ways to do that is to leave the handle unflattened. It makes the bow wider, which makes it less suitable for shooting, or you'll need a lower spined arrow. And since the PVC bows are not already all that strong in general for this style, you typically are going to need a fairly light arrow. Nevertheless, it makes the handle wider, which makes it more laterally stable. That's very desirable, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons, even if it does rob the bow of a little bit of performance. So I'm willing to accept the fact that it's a little bit lower energy storage, because that stability is going to be very important when you're dealing with somebody who's not as familiar with the bow, how to care for it, how to use it perfectly. Everything you can do to help the people you make your bows for is usually good. So as it's cooling, I'm just holding it in the orientation that I want it. I can see now also that the bow is not perfect. Yeah, I need to probably reflex one of these limbs a little bit more. But I'll do that later, because right now I want to just get it strung up, get the whole basic shape ready so that I can go and test it to see. I find it easier to adjust things like that after you get the basic form of the bow. Okay, got it straight. Now I'm happy with that final curve. Great. In fact, in a lot of cases, you might want one limb to be a tiny bit more stronger than the other limb. That will usually be the lower limb. It'll have to work a little bit harder. Okay, so after running it under cold water, there's our basic blank for the bow of bravery. Oh, the other consequence of leaving the handle round, not only is it more laterally stable, which I find advantageous, furthermore you have more bend in the handle that allows you to get a tiny bit more draw length out of the bow. Ultimately you're going to find that you'll be able to draw it maybe an extra half inch, I don't know, but it'll be a marginal amount, but that can be significant. Every little bit counts. So there we have it. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll do the same sort of thing I did right here. I'm going to go and recurve one of the tips, then I will recurve the other tip, and then we're going to have to figure out how I'm going to flatten it and get it set. So I went ahead, and this side I flattened using this board. You'll see in a minute, but I flattened it and slightly bent it forward. Then over the next 2 inches I heated that gently just until it began to puff, and you can see that how I then cocked it forward a little bit farther, just making a nice graceful curve. I'll probably go ahead and trim the back, pinch that shut, and we'll have a nice elegant tip of the bow. I'll try and do that on both sides. So here comes the second side. Until the bow begins to puff up, I would strongly suggest deprioritizing the edges. I don't think it loses heat quite as efficiently from the edges, and that can cause some of the overheating and then tearing of the PVC in those areas that we've all probably experienced at one time or another when heating the flattening bow to curve it forward into a sia or recurve. Alright, so now the final 4 inches have been heated. All I do, take my board, look at it from the side just to make sure it's being flattened evenly, and I cock it forward a little bit. That's really it. I don't flatten it completely because I want it to taper elegantly from the limb into the tip. I like a reducing tip rather than a sharp and abrupt end. You can do that too, and it looks really good. That's just a different style than what I'm going for right now. So again, just look at it from the side, make sure the limb is straight, make sure the sia is flattening straight. That's really all there is to it. I'm going to move there just to make sure you can see. Great. So once you think it's cool enough, and again, you can always, especially with this where there's a lot of air on the sides, you can blow on it to try and cool it off a little faster.
That's cool.
I like to go and take a look at it. It's still straight. Now, I don't want it to fully cool off. I'm just going to go into the final 2 inches, and since I don't think I mentioned it, these are 4 inches and 2. I'm going to heat this for the final cock to the front. And that helps to ease the transition so you don't get this bulge right where you began to flatten it. And since this is a very small area, it'll heat up relatively quickly. And you'll notice as you watch, you'll see it start to puff. Just as it starts to puff is when you want to jump on it, so to speak, right now. So then, as you curve it forward, you can grip it just in that area and affect the reflex, the recurve that you're looking for. Pick it up, look down the limb, ensure that it's untwisted and straight. Once you're sure of that, you just continue with the bending. Here, let me exaggerate. You see that kink there? One way you can get rid of that is to pinch it from the sides and it'll puff the edge up. Or simply don't bend it as sharply. Yeah, this is looking pretty darn good. There we go. Sorry. It straight. Looks pretty good from one side to the other. Pretty happy with that. I'm just going to let it cool now. I might do some tweaks to it. I'm definitely going to pinch the top shut. Probably going to saw the back end off to close it off. And really, it's almost done. It's ready to have the knock cut. So I hope you've enjoyed this part of the build. We'll pick up later after I've made the knocks and with any extra work that I'm going to be doing. Thanks for watching. I wanted to show you the progress that I've made on the Bow of Bravery. There she is, with a nice faux wood grain finish. The first coat I did was black shoe polish. The second coat and third coats were just regular old brown shoe polish. I like it. It adds little bits of stains, and some areas are marked. It looks a lot like real wood. And I sort of left the handle more or less with 2 coats, since I'm going to end up putting a nice handle wrapping material there. But there's the bow. I think it's looking really, really good. Tomorrow I'm going to go ahead and put a nice design on each limb, from here to here, and a smaller one up near the ends of the bow. Then the other limb, give it a nice wrap at the center, and I thought 2 smaller wraps below the nocks to the shoulders. I'm really having a lot of success with my shorter strings. I think they were 38-inch strings, and then what I'm doing is I'm tying on my little loops, and that makes it adjustable, and that's just about perfect for these. The length of the string was just right, so I'm pleased. It's good enough you can sling it over your shoulder and wear it. They're very cool. This is a good bow. I shot it, and it's working very well, very beautifully. So I look forward to showing you the decorated version. Tune in later.